I'm Mathilde Gralpois. I'm assistant professor in University of Tours. I will present you a three-time presentation. In fact, the first time of my presentation will be about cooperation between the Loire River International Interregional Plan and university all over the Loire River, to show how this institute, this authority, this local authority is supporting many kind of different researches, academic researches, and especially since 2009, social sciences researches. The second point will be about the urban development, environment transformation, and natural risk, and how it's important to take into account urban development and environment transformation into the study of natural risk. And the third point will be about a research academic program that it's ongoing. It's a work in progress about how flood is integrated or not in the management of a public technical network of water, sanitation, and waste management. So first of all, I would like to point that all around the Loire River there is an interregional plain called Loire River Interregional Plain, which is managed by a public authority called the Loire River Basin Authority. And this public authority is involved in many different projects, such as the reduction of the vulnerability for business plans, some kind of public information, and it's also a very great support for public research by giving opportunity to present our work, our research in front of practitioner, operational people, etc. But also with giving fundings to support researches in social sciences, especially. And the fact that it's very important to focus on social sciences, such as sociology, political science, geography, urban planning, is quite recent. It's the first call for research are from 2009, but now it's going more and more important in the research project of the Loire River Basin authorities. And I want to underline that it's in my point of view, it's a new step toward new cooperation and toward new interaction between flood managers and academic researches. Because the challenge to make people working together, especially between practitioners and researchers, is always a big gap. And both of us, managers and researchers, need mediation, need people to help us to talk together, because we are very different objectives. We are very different objectives due to our time perspective, due to our concrete implementation of our discoveries. So we need a structure, we need an institution to help us to work together, and that's the job that the Loire Basin River Authority have choose to choose to fit. In my research laboratory in the University of Tours, it's a research laboratory called CITER, which means City, Territory, Environment and Society. We have a special research axis based on urban development and flood risks prevention. And I will briefly present you three projects, three academic researches that are ongoing or have been recently finished. The first had this French acronym Bon Temps. Bon Temps is a project about an evaluation of vulnerability for biodiversity and urban spaces in a Loire flood risk on a Loire flood risk scenario. The main objective of a Bon Temps project was to understand how flooding is transforming urban territory and On the contrary, our urban territories is also transforming the flood hazards. So it was, for one part, a project about a theoretical approach of the links between climate change, resilience, and risk. And then we go on a study about the legal context, the legal context that embody the public policy of flood management, to understand how on the Loire River, on the major cities of the Loire River, public policy of urban development are taking into account or not the flooding area, the flooding zones in their territory. And in fact, the confrontation between risk protection, risk reduction strategy and urban planning is still a very burning point in cities, not only in the Loire River basin, but all over in other parts of France. But in the Loire basin territory, we observe that it's still a temptation, it's still a reality that we can have urban projects, we can have housing in some area that are on the fringe of a flooding area or on the middle of flood area. And that's very interesting to understand, not to have a judgment about that, but to understand how it's possible for a local public authority to take this decision. And we try to understand due to some political and sociological factors, such as the great competition between local authorities in France that oblige them or that conduct them, that drive them to take that kind of decision under pressure of territorial attractivity, territorial attractivity or for businesses, for inhabitants, and for fundings also. A second project is called Méthodologie. It was an economical cost and benefits evaluation, or an economical losses evaluation, better. An economical losses evaluation on a methodological point of view of what will be the consequence of a flooding in Loire River basin. It was also a project driven on many different cities all around the Loire River. And it was, for one part, an evaluation of the number of inhabitants, the number of business plans, the number of public infrastructure that can be impacted, that can be or even destroyed by a flood, by flooding. But it also, on the second part, integrated factors of social condition of people living in flooding area, of the age of the people, of the kind of activity of the business plans, etc., to try to understand also what can be the indirect vulnerability of a flooding on a territory, because the fact is that we often evaluate the direct losses, but it's more difficult to understand what can be the endless indirect consequences of a flooding, and it was a proposition of a methodology to enhance that challenge. The third project is called Axel. It's just a beginning project. It's a project about time and space evaluation of vital importance points, accessibility in case of flooding. So it's a modelization with statistical and geographical disciplines that try to understand what can be the break on a road itinerary, what can be the lack of accessibility of the most important infrastructure or the most important services if there is a flood. Because nowadays the question of evacuation is also a very burning point in the risk prevention strategy, because we see that it's very difficult to have a very strict public policy about housing, about urban development. So the question of evacuation is now more and more on the local agenda. Then I would like to present you a last project that I know a little bit better. So I will take the last 5 minutes to present you that project. It's a project about a pragmatic social research on urban network services and flood risk prevention. In fact, our first hypothesis is to say that there is a lack of interaction between urban development, public policy, and technical urban network management. I just say that about urban development and flood prevention strategy, but concerning technical urban networks, we can also consider that there is like no consideration about what can be the consequence of a flooding for the continuity of services and infrastructures of especially water services, sanitation, and waste treatment. Because those three local network services doesn't seem to be vital, doesn't seem to be very important, but in fact, it's really important to take them into account if we want to consider the indirect vulnerability of a flooding. So our methodology is to enter in the daily work of local service servants and municipal representatives. It's a political sociology of the daily micro decision of local civil servants and representatives. For the moment, it's still also an ongoing work, so I will not give you a strong point of results, but I can present you some facts or some mini explanation. First of all, how can we explain that even if we make many efforts to reduce the risk in the major city of the Loire River, how can we explain that even if we focus our intention on technical measures, on methodology, on evaluation, on diagnosis, there's still some proof that flooding can have huge consequence. It's what Valérie November calls recalcitrance. It means that even if we have a very strong public action on flood risk prevention, risk is still there. Risk still face its own management in a way. And this recalcitrance, for our point of view, can be explained by two big points. It's the local governance transformation in France. I've said some words about that just before, but in France we are from 20 years in a context of decentralization, in which central state has delegate some competency to local authorities, and local authorities are nowadays in a context of competition, in concurrence, to attract fundings, to attract people, to attract businesses, and in that context, it's urban development and economic development is really their priority, and it's very hard for the local civil servants and the representative to prioritize flood risk management in their local public agenda. And the other thing is that we can observe some kind of contradiction in tools of action concerning flood risk strategy. For example, there is a strong belief that mapping and geographical information system mapping can be the solution, as if we know where networks are, we can manage flooding and the consequence of flooding on these networks, but that's just a representation, that's just a mapping, it's not such an operational and neither a preventive or proactive way to reduce the risk. Another point is that the technical improvement on network to improve the capacity to reduce the consequence of flooding is very reluctant, is very resistant. I mean that it's very difficult for people from network to understand that they have to take risk into account. Thank you very much.